Hey everybody, thanks so much for taking time for tuning in to the WTCF podcast. It's Charlie and I'm hanging out at the house today and I wanted to spend some time talking about a couple of fitness myths that are out there that are really easy to fall into, and hopefully it's something that will help you out a little bit. So jumping right into it, myth number one, spot reduction of fat. Basically saying, I want to lose belly fat. Well, I regret to inform you that that's not really possible the way that you think. So doing, all the crunches, doing all the other stuff is not going to pan out the way that you want it to, because for that, it's going to be your nutrition. So if you're trying to spot reduce anything, you really need to go ahead and work on your nutrition and do a basically full body of it, because of how our genetics are set up, where you're going to be like genetically predetermined to lose weight, gain weight in very specific spots, and there's not much you can do about it. It's just kind of the way the world works on those ones. So you can always just blame your parents. They're the ones who gave that to you, but you're here, so you get a chance to go ahead and do something a little bit different. Again, focusing in on your nutrition. Now, the smallest thing we can do to go ahead and get as close as we can is to train certain areas really, really tough to gain muscle. So if I want my back to look a little bit leaner, if I want to look like I've lost some weight on my back, I would want to grow the muscles on my back so it would stretch the skin a little bit more. And if it's still the same amount of fat, a larger muscle, it'll stretch over it more and you'll look a little bit leaner for it. So that's about as close as we can get on actual spot reduction. So if you're mad about like a bat wing as you like wave your arm around, you need to pay attention to your nutrition, and then you can do additional tricep work, especially for the long head of the tricep, so elbow up high and reaching overhead, to get it moving a little bit, but it's not going to actually just reduce that fat without reducing somewhere else first. So again, keep that in mind as you go ahead and work on your nutrition. The second one, no pain, no gain. Basically stating, well, if I'm not sore, then I'm not working hard. Now, being a bit of a masochist in the fitness world at this point, I do make sure that I train to a certain level where I do find some discomfort. But being more sore doesn't mean you're getting more results. Basically, all we're really doing is we train the body to a certain point to where the body suddenly gets really concerned about its well-being. Like, hey, if I don't adapt, I'm gonna die. So the idea would be is you would train enough to where your body starts to think, hey, these muscles need to grow. I'm no longer able to sustain this environment. I need to progress, evolve into the next thing a little bit more to make sure that I can survive. So that's how your body's going to go ahead and work. So once you've crossed the threshold of building some muscle in there, you don't have to do a ton of more volume over the top of that, because then it's just going to be a fair amount of junk, right? So if I went to the gym and I'm like, man, I need to make sure that I'm super sore and I'm going to do 45 sets on my legs, that's way too much. At some point, I'm not going to be able to push, find a good connection, make any good connections, move through that stuff. And I'm starting to risk more and more of being injured, which would then set me back instead of pushing me forward. So you want to be able to train enough that you feel that you're being challenged. But if you are getting sore, ensure that your soreness dissipates by the time you train next. If you are still sore by the next time you train, you're training too hard. Back it off a little bit, 10, 15%, even if it means doing the same workout again. Give yourself an opportunity to grow from that one. It could be something that helps. Um, Carbs are the enemy. Oh, again, carbs are fine. Gluten's fine unless you have an intolerance to it. If you have allergic reactions like celiac disease, or just like you do have a medical thing when it comes to gluten, don't have it. But they're not bad. And this is why people think that they're bad. When you eat carbs, it's converted into glycogen within your system. So it's basically how our body uses the energy. So we take bread and we break it all down and we make it into chemical components. And that chemical component goes throughout our bloodstream and throughout our body and then gets stored by the muscles. And then what ends up happening is glycogen loves water. So every gram of glycogen can hold upwards of 3 grams of water. So now, by having a little bit of extra carb, you can actually inflate and bloat. And that's why people find that it's like, oh, I'm putting on so much weight from carbs. It's a temporary thing. So again, as we go ahead and use the muscle and kind of work our way through it, the only way you're actually getting bigger in that scenario is if you're consuming in a calorie surplus. Now, for me, I love having carbs just before I go work out. It makes the pump feel way better, right? So as you go ahead and work through your workout, I like this feeling of being a little bit bigger. Like it just kind of feels cool. And you only have it for like an hour, if that, and then it goes away. Like you're like, yeah, I feel big, I feel so strong and tough, and then it just all falls to nothing, and you go right back to your same size. So again, carbs aren't the enemy unless you have some allergic reaction to it. You can out exercise a bad diet, not very well. Now, if you're only a little bit of a bad diet, maybe you can. Maybe you can actually outwork it because not every day is going to be your best eating day or your best training day, but sometimes they'll balance each other out and it'll be to your advantage of creating a caloric deficit. But one of my favorite ones so far is it was a couple of years ago. Will Tennyson, a YouTuber, went ahead and tried to eat 10,000 and burn 10,000. It is not the same. It is way easier to consume 10,000 calories than it is to remove 10,000 calories. So again, it's not so much the fact of like, you can do it to some small degree, but as you go ahead and build that up bigger and bigger, saying like, oh, you know what, I'm going to go do this and then I'm just going to work it all off. It doesn't quite work that way. I really wish it did, but it doesn't. The last one I have here is more is always better. So if I spend more time in the gym, that's better. Uh, I think if you effectively spend time and efficiently spend time in the gym, you don't need that long, especially if you've done it for long enough time and you've found yourself at maintenance, right? It's easier to maintain and keep the muscle than it is to grow it. So I can do way less volume, way less work, way less effort, way less energy into those workouts and maintain my current physique as is, right? I can do way less because my body's saying, well, at least there's some of this. Okay, we're challenged to at least some small degree. I don't have to make advancements. But if I do want to go ahead and start to find some increases, I do have to go a little bit more. But eventually, it's going to get back to what we brought up before with the no pain, no gain. You're going to get to junk volume where you're just not doing anything for yourself anymore. And you're starting to risk more things like injuries. And it's not really worth your time to go ahead and do that. It's kind of just silly and wasteful. So, what else do we got on here? Pause. Number 6, women will get bulky if they lift heavy. And this is the one I laugh at every single time it comes up. Women sometimes actually do believe if they touch a barbell and pick up something really heavy, that they're going to immediately look like a man. That's so funny. No, it doesn't work that way. Because if that was the case, like these Olympia athletes, those bodybuilders that are in the highest levels, like they would never have to put in any work. And the thing is, if you got too muscular, just stop working out. So if it really was that easy to have a woman lift heavy weight and immediately turn into a bodybuilder, just stop lifting. Now, genetically, some people could find that advantage. People who take extra substances might get an advantage in that one. But genetically speaking, testosterone is one of the big drivers of muscle adaptation. And since men carry more of it, they have a better chance of putting on muscle than women. So, if anything, women have to train harder to be anywhere close to men in terms of building muscle because estrogen is not designed to go ahead and do that as well as testosterone. It's just how it works. So, highly recommend learning how to lift big, heavy weight because now you get a couple things out of it. One, you're going to grow bigger muscle over time. Now, you're not going to get super jacked, but you could get jacked if you took long enough with it. If you spend years, decades working on it, yeah, you might get jacked. You might get just super big. But most likely that's not going to happen. Lift heavy, put some compression on your bones because as women age up, especially through their 40s, osteoporosis is a big deal. Calcium is a bigger deal. So again, having strong bones is really important. So you don't want to end up like that character on 30 Rock. It's like, I have bird bones, I have hollow bones. So you do want to make sure that you can, endure because what we end up doing when we create that environment and put pressure on our bones, there are very small hairline fractures that repair quickly, but they repair harder. So when they repair a little bit stronger. So you're able to endure more as time continues on. Myth number 7, you can't build muscle on a plant-based diet. You can, but it's really hard. So meat, especially, is very high in protein, especially lean meat. I am an omnivore. I will eat basically anything that's put in front of me within reason. But again, if you decide that you want to be vegan, vegetarian, and a lot with that, you actually have more options than you've ever had before in terms of finding good sources of protein for it. I would highly recommend that you're going to have to supplement. One of the big standouts is animal products have complete protein, while plants sometimes are lacking some of the essential amino acids that come along with it. So I would highly recommend supplementing, B12, uh, especially things like B12, calcium, trying to think. I think like B3. So the B vitamins are going to be really, really important to make sure that you can, be able to maintain and build muscle. You can, it just will be really, really tough. Myth number 8, sweating equals fat burning. Sweating is a natural thing that your body does to cool it the hell down. It recognizes that your body temperature has gotten too high, thus cooking your insides. So it says, let's go ahead and release some salted liquid through your skin. And as the air touches it, it'll cool your body a little bit. That is not indication that you're burning fat. So when people get on things like fasted cardio, I actually prefer fasted cardio, but not for this reason. Fasted cardio does not burn more fat than regular cardio. It's just different energy. So the meal that you ate last night, and then the run you go on in the morning, you're still going to be using up the stuff from yesterday. So whatever that was is still going to be there, right? It doesn't just disappear. So even if you ate just beforehand, you're not going to be using that stuff right away. It doesn't work that way. Now, what ends up happening for myself and why I like fasted cardio, it's easier on my stomach overall. I feel a little bit lighter because I'm physically not carrying anything in my digestive tract, at least for my stomach, right? Or at least it's very little, something for me to maintain, right? I don't want to go ahead and eat a steak dinner and then go run. It doesn't sound like fun because I'm going to lose the steak dinner up back out of my face again. It doesn't sound like a good time. So I don't want to do that. So I don't. I just like the feeling of fasted cardio. Doesn't mean that you have to. Myth number 9, fitness supplements are a shortcut to success. No, they give you 1%. That's it. 1%. So things like creatine, arguably the best supplement that anybody should be on if they're going to get into lifting, because what it basically does is it gives you the equivalent of 1 rep. And it gives you 1 more rep than you think you can get. That's it. The rest of it doesn't. The other supplements don't help out as much as you think until you start to get into like heavy steroid use. And that stuff's mainly for recovery. But if you're sitting here, it's like, man, I need to have my pre-workout and my post-workout shakes and all this. Most of the time, you don't need it. Caffeine is really helpful. Citrulline malic, which is in a lot of pre-workout, as long as it's dosed properly, could give you 1%. That's it. It gives you very, very little. So if you're like, man, I need to go switch over and spend all this money on this stuff, ain't gonna do nothing. Taking fat burners just increases your like inside temperature a little bit, so you might burn 1% more. Doesn't make a big difference. But if you're at like the highest levels of the game, where 1% is now the difference between first and fifth, there's going to be more uses for that stuff. But a lot of us aren't competing at that level. So it doesn't really matter. I think just find workouts and stuff that you enjoy and have fun with it. And the last myth I have on here, you should always follow the latest fitness trends. Nope. You should always follow good science. So if you're working on something and you're like, science is saying that we should go ahead and try this, go ahead and try it. Now, if it's moving your workout around or you find some other fitness trend that's really just fun to do, that's okay. You can still go ahead and do it. That doesn't make a big difference. You can go ahead and enjoy it. If you're enjoying your workouts, it means you're going to do them. So if you like following those trends, cool. But you don't have to stay on top of them. They're like, oh, this is a secret that nobody wants you to know. The secret no one wants you to know, it's calories in, calories out. Train hard with intensity, progressive overload, and hypertrophy, right? Manage the amount of food that goes into your body, manage how hard you're working at the gym, manage that, how hard you can work at those things at the gym, right? So make sure that you're there, and then you make sure that you do the work. There, big secret. So hopefully this really quick little setup helps you, navigate some of these other, myths that are out there. And if people like this, go ahead and drop a comment below. I'll try it again. If not, cool, I'll probably do it anyway because this is kind of fun. So have a good one. Good luck.